folks can view it later. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Reginald Hughes. I am going to be your host for today's session. This is going to be hosted by Noe Garcia and his chief of staff, Ria. So again, we ask if you have any questions, please post them in the chat so maybe they can also answer or we can engage with it. Or if you want to send it to us personally, we will ask both Noe or Ria at the end so they can answer your question. But if you can go ahead and introduce yourselves and then we can get started on our presentation.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for introducing me, Reginald. I'm Noe Garcia. I'm a third-year major in public affairs. I'm from Bakersfield, California, so that's the tip of the Central Valley here in California. And I've grown up here my entire life. I'm the Financial Supports Commissioner and was elected this year. Last year, I served as the Assistant Commissioner, and that's where I got a lot of my experience within these programs and resources. And I'm happy to share them with you all today.
Hi everyone, my name is Ria. I'm a fourth year biology and German double major. I am serving as Noe's chief of staff this year. I'm actually from Washington State, so I'm out of state, but I'm in Westwood right now in my apartment. And last year I was also in FSC and I worked as the campus affordability director. So if you've heard of like the Bruin card fee waiver and things like that, those are the kind of things that I worked on.
Yeah, and we can get started.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Do you have co-host powers or?
Yeah, I do. I'll share the PowerPoint right here.
Okay, great.
Okay, and then I'll present it. All right, solid. Is it all good? All right, so this is going to be our transfer transitions presentation. We'll be first going over some programs that FSC has offered in the past, and we hope to continue offering this year. And then we'll go over some programming funds that are accessible to all student orgs on campus. There's going to be a variety of funds that you can apply to most every event. And so we really encourage students to apply to these and utilize these funds to better prepare themselves for their events and just have a better experience for their attendees at whatever event that they decide to pursue. So one of the first programs that we want to promote is a commuter scholarship. This is a recurring scholarship every year where FSC is provided $2,000 in scholarships. And we provide these to commuter students primarily. And so we distribute these during mid-fall quarter. Applications are often based off of needs shown in applications relative to commuting costs and just really costs of traveling to and from campus, as well as additional need. So in the application, once it is open, you'll see where you can indicate your need, where you can indicate how much you travel. And so we really try to target those who really need these scholarships just to help with gas. These scholarships can range from $100 to $200 depending on the year. And we hope that this provides enough financial aid for gas. And these are, while we call it a scholarship, this is listed as an award. So it shouldn't affect your financial aid, nor should any of the programs that we offer this year. Students often wonder if this is going to affect their financial aid and lower how much they receive, but it will not. Applications can be found on our Instagram at USAC FSC or our Facebook, USAC Financial Supports Commission. And we'll plug in our contact information at the end of the presentation as well.
Yeah, so Bruin Card Fee Waiver Program. So this was actually a program that we implemented last year. And essentially, we got $2,000 that would be used towards Bruin Card Fee Waivers. So that's if your card isn't working anymore, you happen to lose it. The details are still in the works just because of everything happening with COVID and everything being online, but they'll definitely be accessible in future quarters once we're back on campus. The replacement cost is $25 and the fee waiver program provides $15 of that. And you'll likely be able to find more information on that on our Instagram as we post about it.
Yeah, and additionally, this is for if you've lost your Bruin card. So there's two different types of replacements. One is if you have your Bruin card and it's broken, you can already replace that for $10. And so this replacement, this fee waiver is for those who have completely lost their Bruin cards and would like a new Bruin card. This is very helpful because when you're on campus, once we're back on campus, your Bruin card is really going to be your key to most things, whether that's getting into your dorms, whether that's going into Bruin Bash, for example. You need your Bruin card to get into Bruin Bash, whether it's going to dining halls. Your Bruin card really serves as your identifying card on campus, and you should hopefully always be carrying it. And so that's the hope of this Bruin card fee waiver program. The fee waivers are limited to one per person. So once you've used up a fee waiver, unfortunately, we aren't able to provide additional ones, but we hope that one fee waiver would be enough for you to be able to replace your brewing card. Oh, wow, that went fast. Okay, the next program that we have is our lab coats / goggles rental program. Again, just due to COVID, we don't have a space or a safe way to really distribute these lab coats and goggles. In addition, many classes will not be in person, and some labs will, but unfortunately, we won't be offering that program this quarter. But how it often works is that the pickups occur during the first week of each quarter. This is to ensure that students have a wide range of dates to pick up their lab coats, and all the applications are the final weeks of each quarter. So if we're doing fall quarter, the application would open up the last week of finals week and stay open throughout winter break. Additionally, it'll stay open during spring break after winter quarter. And so you can always, again, check on our website to see when that opens up. And we have about 150 lab coats to rent out and 100 goggles. The great thing about our program is even though it is first come, first serve, this past year and the year before that, we usually have extra lab coats and goggles. So if you think that you didn't sign up in time, you can always reach out to us in the future and we can work something out to deliver you a lab coat. And this is really just for you, it's free. You just have to return it at the end of the quarter, and we hope that students really do keep their materials safe so that we can pass it on to future students.
So the next one we're going to be talking about is the Bruin Tech Grant. And so this is going to be for any technology related expenses. So a lot of the time, especially now, we have like laptops, tablets, and internet service is extremely important. And so this grant provides up to $1,000 per student per request. Right now, funding has been exhausted, but the financial aid office is working to secure more funding. And so definitely keep an eye out to see when the grant will be available again.
Yeah, and once the grant is available again, we'll definitely be publicizing it to as many of our resources as we can. This past year in spring quarter, due to the switch to online, the rapid switch to online, the funding was exhausted very rapidly because of the amount of applications. But I would always say, again, just keep updated to the channels. So whether that is like your transfer student channels, whether that's Financial Supports Commission channels or other USAC channels, we'll definitely be promoting this tech grant as soon as it's released to ensure that all students have the opportunity to apply to this and hopefully get some funding for it. Additionally, though, aside from the Bruin Tech Grant, we are offering, well, UCLA is offering loaners. So they're offering laptop loaners. They're offering MiFi loaners as well. And so if you're interested in that, you can contact the UCLA library and they'll be able to provide you more information on these loaners. The difference in the tech grant and the loaner is that with the loaner, of course, you'll return it after it's been used. The tech grant is an award, so you do not have to pay it back, and it's given to you, and the laptop or materials that you receive, you can keep with this tech grant. All right, so now we're going to be going into funds that are available. So these funds will be very different funds. So we'll do community service funds, we'll do USAC office specific funds, and so all of these will kind of have maybe how much it's capped at per quarter for funding and what these funds are often used for. So going into the first fund, the community service funds, there is 3 different funds within the community service funds. One of them is the community service mini fund, which is capped at 3.5K per group per quarter. And this often funds transportation, food, admission tickets, and other supplies necessary for that community service. This again is going to be an application that's per event based. So if you don't need 3,500, then you'll definitely just apply for what you need, and you should be awarded hopefully an amount similar. The next one that we have is the SIOC mini fund, which is Student Initiated Outreach Mini Fund. This is varied funding for student initiated, student run community service projects and UCLA student sponsored orgs who perform outreach functions. So if that's you trying to bring in high school students to UCLA to learn more about anything, or bring in students from community colleges or from other organizations, that's what this fund will be used for. So primarily for outreach functions. The next one is the Supplemental Fund for Service. This provides UCLA undergraduate students affiliated with the service project the opportunity to pursue their initiatives. So they can fund 3 different types of things. So they can either fund conferences. Again, this is going to be dependent on how much your conference costs. But again, be aware that if you are planning on hosting a conference or attending a conference, you always want to be very efficient in when you plan your schedule. Conferences must be submitted at least 4 weeks before the date of the conference. And for any programs that you hold, they'll be submitted 14 days before the program. Additionally, if you need funds outside of this for your service projects, you can still apply to the supplemental fund for service as long as it's 14 days before the funds are needed.
So the next one we'll be talking about is the Bruin Advocacy Grant, which is provided by the EVP office. And a lot of the time it provides funds for traveling, lodging, and different registration fees depending on what you're going for. So like airplane rides and things like that are capped at $200 per person, and ground transportation is capped at $100. And essentially what this is for things like lobbying, advocacy efforts. For example, I actually went to a Regions meeting in San Francisco, and I got that trip covered for me, like my lodging, my flight, and everything. I got that covered for me by the Bruin Advocacy Grant. So this is going to be something that you want to look into if you're a student group that, once again, does advocacy efforts, whether it be traveling within Los Angeles or California, or even going to DC or different states.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, this program is from External Vice President's office. And so often if you are planning on doing any advocacy efforts, we highly recommend you reach out to the EVP office. They're very accessible. You can find their emails by searching up UCLA, USAC offices, and you can reach out to the EVP and see how you can work with them to secure the proper funds you need to do the advocacy effort that you want to do. The advocacy effort that Ria mentioned was to a UC Regents meeting. That was in conjunction with FSC and EVP. We were planning an advocacy trip to stop tuition hikes. And so that's why we were able to qualify for these funds, because we went to advocate to stop these tuition hikes. And I believe Ria and other members of our group that went did speak at the Regents meeting, urging them to not have tuition hikes. This is the IVP's office partnership fund. This is a new fund, and so they offer $1,200 per organization for logistical things such as publicity, reserving spaces, and connecting USAC with student organizations. So it's a very broad fund. This is really kind of one thing that, again, if you want to do this fund, you should reach out to IVP to see how you can best work with them in securing funds for your orgs and how you want to publicize it. So oftentimes, if you want to have an event, you need to publicize it. You can send out ads, you can send out flyers, kind of any publications that you may need for the event, as well as reserving spaces. If you don't know, if you want to reserve spaces on campus, like an Ackerman Grand Ballroom, that does incur costs. And so applying to these funds for events like in Ackerman or other places on campus that require you to pay, that's what this fund can be used for. So keep in mind that if you are planning events, large events, so conferences, or having outside groups come to UCLA, you will have to pay some fees depending on the building that you use and how far in advance you plan the event.
So the next grants are from AAC, which is the Academic Affairs Commissioner or Commission, and the two funds are AAC Travel Grant Mini and AAC ASRF. The Travel Grant Mini is $500 per quarter for student travel for only academic events. So in contrast to the Bruin Advocacy Grant, that was lobbying. This does not fall under the AAC Travel Grant Mini. So it would be things such as like attending an academic conference and things like that. Then the next one is up to $2,000 to support the academic success of students. And that's pretty broad, but I think that, you know.
Yeah, since they're very broad, some of these are very, again, specific. So in terms of the AAC Travel Grant Mini, that's, again, if you want to go into a conference of higher education or a conference where UCLA wants to represent itself, in addition to other students. So whether it's a tutoring conference, whether it's another academic related conference, that's what that travel grant could be provided for. And then the AAC ASRF is the Academic Success Referendum Funds. And so that's how they're able to access those funds. This is really just to support the academic success of students. And so any program that you kind of think can fit that will be applicable to the AAC ASRF. The next one that is offered is by the Cultural Affairs Commission. So these two funds will be culturally related. So the first one that they have is the Arts Restore and Community Fund. This is for students who are in culturally oriented programs. And this is to help with those costs of those programs. So they offer up to $2,500 per quarter to promote cultural diversity through arts. So this can be facility venue, again, if you're hosting any events on campus or outside of UCLA, any program supplies that you may incur, honorarium, and youth programs. So that can be for that. You don't, again, have to be any kind of, you could be a culturally oriented program, but not be a culturally oriented organization. So as long as it's focused on culturally oriented, that's how you'll apply to the Arts Restoring Community Fund. For the Community Fund, that's similar for organizations that want to put on culturally relevant projects and events. And this one is, again, a little bit of a more broad fund, and also provides up to $2,500 per quarter for your organization. And you can continue applying to these and others that say per quarter, every quarter that you have any events on, as long as they're applicable to the fund.
So the next fund is from SWC, which is Student Wellness Commission, and it's the Student Wellness Programming Fund. And so that's up to $750 per quarter to help fund any event that's like health related on campus. Again, it's pretty broad, but I think that you can always reach out if you're unsure whether you would qualify for the fund.
The next fund is the Green Initiative Fund. So this is hosted by the Facilities Commission. Although the TGIF is a separate fund. They have two funds, the mini fund and the main fund. You could see the difference in price there based off the funds. For the mini fund, it is $500 per quarter, and it's capped at $1,000 to support projects/events that promote sustainability within the community. So taking from an example of FSC, we were hosting an event to give out resources during finals week. And so we were able to use the mini fund for sustainable resources that we had. So for depending on like the utensils, any utilities that we were using, as long as they were deemed sustainable, we were able to get those covered by the mini fund. And so that, again, is not just for events focusing on sustainability, but if you're promoting sustainability within your event that's focused on helping students during finals, you can qualify for that fund as well. The main fund is up to $10,000 per quarter. And so this could be for projects or events that your organization hopes to provide to the larger community. So I think seeing the size of these funds, I urge student orgs that if they have ideas to promote sustainability within the community, they have access to these funds, and they should really apply to these funds for any kind of thing that they want to promote. If they want to promote a project and so they can't get the funding afterwards, I would say apply again the following quarter. It is very dependent on each quarter just due to the amount of applications. And so if one quarter they're receiving a multitude of applications, the amount of funding that each group will get will be lowered. Alternatively, if there's only one group applying that quarter, then that group will have more access to funding. And this will go the same for other funds, that they're all kind of limited based off of how many student groups are applying that quarter. So never feel that you can't get the funding. If the first quarter you aren't able to access that funding, maybe the second quarter you will be able to access that funding.
And so the next fund that we'll be talking about is USA, I don't know if it's BOD or BOD, Programming Fund, but alas. But yeah, it's a fund that helps programming costs for events organized by registered student organizations. A lot of the time people will use it on advertising or graphics or different rentals for things that they need, as well as like food or supplies or transportation. And this fund is up to $50,000 per quarter.
Yeah, so I'd also recommend with students applying to the programming fund, BOD is Board of Directors. So it's pretty much a fund between USAC and UCLA. Again, you can use this for a wide range of things. So advertising or graphics, facilities or equipment rentals. There are limitations on what you can really apply for these for. And so I'd recommend you going to the programming website. I would always just search up UCLA, USAC programming funds. And a lot of websites will pop up with many of these resources and details on how to apply to each fund. Each fund is held independently, so that's why I divided them up by offices. Each office will review applications separately, and so they often recommend you either apply to their fund first or as a last resort. So just make sure you check on those details on the specifics of each fund, on whether they'll fund your event first or it'll be a last resort fund. That's pretty much the funds that we had accessed. As I mentioned, those are my tips that I was giving throughout the presentation. Apply to these funds. These funds are, a lot of these funds are taken from student fees. And so we're really the ones paying for these funds. So I often always encourage students hosting any event to try to find ways to apply to these funds. As I mentioned, we're able to apply to the TGIF fund because we were able to promote sustainability within the event that wasn't primarily focused on sustainability, but definitely made an effort to emphasize it after we saw that fund. And we just had to alter our program a little bit to be able to apply to that TGIF fund. Similarly with the other funds, if you can find a way to alter your program a little bit to fit these funds, it could be a lot more helpful for you and the communities and the people that you're trying to reach within your funds.
Thank you so much again for including all this information about programming funds and going over the lab coat rental and giving a little bit update about the Bruin Tech grant. We just had a few questions to ask from our pre-survey, if that's okay with you, if we open the floor up to any other people who will want to answer their question.
Yeah, definitely. I could stop sharing my screen if that's fine as well.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So our first question is, are there any revenues to help me access free resources on campus, considering most of the opportunities or resources on campus might be closed? One example they gave is there any idea of accessing free printing on campus?
Yeah, so these revenues can be found on a variety of websites. Two of websites that I would highlight would be our website by FSC, as well as the Financial Wellness Program's website. Our website, if you search up UCLA USAC FSC website, it should show up, but I can also say it's fsc.usac.ucla.edu. Under there, if you go under resources, we have multiple resources like what places on campus offer free printing, how many pages of printing do they offer. We also offer financial aid and scholarship resources and food discounts that we will continue to update as we secure more funds. Additionally, the Financial Wellness Program, again, search up UCLA Financial Wellness Program, and their website should show up. It is financialwellness.ucla.edu. They also have under campus resources, financial support specific resources, printing and loaner libraries, finding employment, food security resources, housing assistance, and many more resources. So I'd really push these two websites for students to access and outreach. There's really a variety of resources depending on what you're looking for, and some may apply to you and others may not. So I would say look into those resources, and that's really where we have a lot of our resources consolidated. I would always also push to follow our Instagram and the Financial Wellness Program Instagram. Our @ is at USAC FSC, and then Financial Wellness is at UCLA Financial Wellness. So both of our orgs are often offering financial resources, whether that's grants that are being offered, scholarships that are being offered outside of UCLA. We do our best to try to update students with these resources. So I would say go to those areas and you can see access to free printing and many more.
Thank you so much. And then just one other question that we have from our pre-survey is, what resources are available to help reduce the stress of financial burden? You probably mentioned it a little bit in your presentation, but if you also happen to know any other resources, we would love to hear them.
Yeah, one way that I think can help reduce the stress of financial burden is to get more educated on finances. And that's, again, what I would push Financial Wellness. On their websites, they have coaching hours on various topics. So on these coaching hours, they have topics like budgeting, credit, investing basics, loans, and others. So these are a way that students can have access and be able to meet one-on-one with these coaches, these trained coaches. Sometimes they may be students and other times they may be grad students or staff. And so you can reach out to them and get to know kind of how to better budget your resources. Currently, FSC is not offering any of the programs that we mentioned, but we will be offering them as soon as the school year starts. So I would just say once the school year starts, to keep updated with our Instagram as well as other USAC efforts. Currently, we're working with the Facilities Commission, and we're doing outreach to Westwood businesses to get discounts for students who are returning to Westwood in the fall. So we'll kind of consolidate that list once we approach closer to week 1 and have that list for students who are returning to Westwood on discounts that are being offered exclusively to UCLA students.
Great, thank you so much. And then we can finally open the questions to the floor. If anyone has questions for both Noe or Ria, that'll be great. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and speak, or say it in the chat if you're more comfortable.
I actually have a question. So I'm currently a coordinator of one of the ethnic cultural nights here at UCLA. And I was wondering if one of those funds, like for example, the cultural funds, do you think that we would be able to apply for that? Do you think that would apply?
Yeah, I believe so. If it's culturally oriented, it should fall under the guidelines of those either of those two funds. So I'd recommend to see more so the guidelines of it. That's what I mentioned earlier, to kind of see the specifics of how the fund works. Sometimes they don't accept certain things. So even though it's for culturally oriented program, they may not offer funds for food if that's what you're looking for, but they'll offer funds for other things. So I'd always say if you go on the website that I think Reginald linked on the chat, you can go on there and see the details of the both of those funds by CAC, the Cultural Affairs Commission, and always reach out to them. They're very friendly. They're always open to reaching out to students and kind of better helping you apply for these funds and qualify for these funds. They definitely want you to apply for these funds and qualify, same way that we do. We want you to get the most help that you can with your finances. So email them or send them a message on Instagram, and I'm sure they can direct you to more specifics in terms of your program.
Thank you so much.
Do you have any more questions before we formally close the session?
One other resource that I wanted to mention was on CalFresh. I know it was kind of in one of the pre-questions. I would say for CalFresh, you should look up their Instagram of UCLA's CalFresh initiative. I'm not sure if you've promoted it yet, but it's at UCLA CalFresh. And on there, they have a link tree in their bio that has FAQs for applying to CalFresh, eligibility/verification, making an appointment, and other resources that they can really help you on, like one-on-one coaching. So I would recommend looking up on that CalFresh resource.
Great, thank you. I think that's all the questions we have for today. Just want to thank you again for making it out today and compiling all this useful information that we feel like should be made accessible for our incoming transfer population. I want to take a time again to thank you for making it out today out of your busy schedules and coming to present. And also thank you to our participants who are here to support us and transfer transitions so we can make this event greater for the years to come. So thank you again, everyone, for making it out today. And this session has officially ended. If you are interested, we're also going to be having an ECRT presentation at 1:30. So that we're going to talk a little bit more about basic needs. ECRT is the Economic Response Team. So they're going to go a little bit more how there been different resources they offer, because I know not a lot of students are known about their team, and I think they're really helpful, especially in our current circumstances. So thank you everyone again, and if you haven't taken the pre-survey, please do that. But if you already took it, then you're good to go. Yeah, thank you again, Ria and
Thank you
Noah.
for having us.
Bye.
Bye.